Picture this. Midnight in the high mountains. The wind screaming like a living thing. Snowflakes sting your face like thrown sand. Your shelter? A hut of grass and sticks, thin enough for the moonlight to pierce. Inside, the air is so cold your breath hangs in front of you like smoke. For medieval shepherds, this wasn't a bad night. It was every night for months. Winters in the mountains didn't just test you. They hunted you. One mistake, one gap in your defenses, and you'd be frozen solid before dawn. Yet somehow, they survived. Not with thick stone walls or roaring fireplaces, but with cunning. They turned the simplest things, straw, stones, cloaks, even sheep, into weapons against the cold. These weren't cozy tricks. They were survival codes, passed down through generations. And today, you're about to step into their world and learn 7 forgotten heating methods so ingenious they'll change the way you think about warmth forever. The first enemy wasn't the wind. It was the ground. Frozen soil is a silent killer. It pulls heat from your body hour after hour until nothing is left. Shepherds knew this instinctively. Before sleeping, they'd cover the hut floor with thick layers of straw, stomping it flat into a crude mattress. Each stalk was hollow, trapping tiny pockets of still air. That still air acted like insulation, slowing the escape of body heat into the earth. It wasn't comfortable. The straw crunched, poked through thin clothes, and smelled like the flock outside. But comfort didn't matter. Survival did. Without it, you wouldn't just wake up sore. You might not wake up at all. Straw was everywhere after harvest, practically free. It was used for roofing, bedding for animals, and, when the cold came, bedding for humans too. In a world without foam pads or thermal blankets, this was the medieval sleeping pad. Cheap, effective, and life-saving. Skip the straw, and the ground would claim you before the sun rose. Lay it down, and you bought yourself another day. Fire was precious. Wood burned fast, and shepherds couldn't waste it feeding flames all night. So they found a way to store heat. In stone. They'd gather dense rocks from riverbeds or mountain slopes, heat them in the fire until they glowed faintly, then wrap them in cloth or old wool. These hot stones were slipped under bedding, where they released warmth slowly through the night. The science is simple. Thermal mass. Rocks absorb heat gradually and release it just as gradually. One heating cycle could stretch across most of the night, long after the fire had died. But there were risks. Damp or brittle stones could crack or even explode in the fire. Shepherds learned to choose only dense, dry ones. Wrap them poorly and they could scorch fabric or skin. Done right, though, these stones became silent guardians, radiating life-saving heat in the dark. In a hut of straw and wool, they were the difference between shivering until dawn and sleeping through the storm. A cloak was more than clothing. It was armor against the wind. Left loose, it became a sail, letting icy drafts pour in and steal your warmth. The fix was simple: a metal pin or brooch. Fastened tight, the cloak became a sealed cocoon, trapping warm air inside and keeping cold air out. The principle is the same as modern sleeping bags and down jackets. Close every gap, keep every degree of heat. Some pins were plain, others carried simple engravings, but their beauty was irrelevant. What mattered was survival. A loose cloak meant wind slicing through, bleeding heat until fingers stiffened and lips turned blue. With the pin in place, a shepherd could walk through snowdrifts, herd sheep in a blizzard, and still keep their core temperature stable. Without it, even a roaring fire wouldn't save you from the wind's bite. Packed dirt doesn't sound warm, but shepherds knew how to make it work for them. In Alpine and Scandinavian regions, they'd dig shallow pits inside their huts, tamp the earth until it was rock hard, and let it soak up heat from the day's fire or sunlight. At night, that stored warmth would slowly radiate back into the hut. It wasn't luxury. Sleeping on packed earth felt like lying on stone. But with straw or hides on top, it became a primitive underfloor heating system. No pipes, no electricity, just the planet itself acting as a slow-release heater. Without it, the hut stayed bone-cold once the fire died. With it, the air inside stayed just warm enough to keep frostbite at bay. Medieval skincare wasn't about beauty, it was about keeping your skin attached to your body. Shepherds smeared animal fat mixed with fireplace ash onto exposed skin. The fat created a greasy barrier that sealed in moisture and blocked wind. The ash added carbon particles that absorbed heat and slowed frostbite. It smelled awful. It looked worse, but it worked. Historical accounts from Germany and Russia describe peasants saving chunks of bison or deer fat, melting it down and rubbing it over noses, ears, and fingers. Without it, frostbite could blacken skin in hours. With it, you bought yourself precious time, enough to make it through the night. Cold feet weren't just uncomfortable, they were deadly. Loose circulation and frostbite set in fast. Shepherds didn't have knitted socks, so they wrapped their feet in linen or wool strips, then packed dry straw inside. The straw trapped warm air. The cloth held it in place. It squeaked. It left trails of straw behind, but it kept toes alive. In a world where losing your mobility meant losing your life, warm feet were non-negotiable. On the coldest nights, shepherds didn't sleep alone. They brought lambs, sometimes full-grown sheep, into the hut. It was noisy, it was smelly, but it was warm. A sheep's body heat was free insulation, and in a hut with no blankets, that warmth could mean the difference between life and death. Science backs it up. The combined body heat of several animals can raise the temperature of a small space by several degrees. In a freezing hut, that was everything. These 7 tricks weren't clever conveniences. They were lifelines. Every straw stalk, every heated stone, every pinned cloak was a choice between life and death. Survival isn't about having the best gear. It's about using what you have brilliantly. So the next time you feel the cold creeping in, remember the shepherds and the fact that they beat winter with nothing but grit, instinct, and a barnyard full of unlikely allies. If this story lit a spark in you, share it, because history's best survival lessons deserve to be remembered.